The only way the ancient astronaut theory can be disproven is when the extraterrestrials show up and say we were never here in the past.
For more than a
Imagine you wake up one morning and half the internet is laughing at your face. Your hair is frozen mid-explosion, your hands are reaching towards something invisible, and millions of strangers are attaching your image to jokes about missing car keys, burnt toast, and office drama. Most people would disappear. Most people would quietly ask their agent to fix it. But this man did the exact opposite, and that decision changed everything about where his life went next. This is the real story of Giorgio A. Tsoukalos, the man the internet calls the ancient aliens guy, and the journey that brought him from a small city in Switzerland all the way to one of the longest-running shows in History Channel history. Before any of this happened, before the memes, before the television cameras, before his face became a shorthand punchline understood across every continent, there was just a curious kid growing up in Lucerne, Switzerland. Giorgio was born on March 14, 1978, and from the very beginning, his background placed him at the intersection of different worlds. His father was Greek, his mother was Austrian, and he grew up absorbing multiple languages and cultural perspectives at the same time. That kind of early exposure to diverse ways of thinking tends to either overwhelm a person or open their mind in unusual directions. For Giorgio, it did the latter. He developed a fascination with ancient history, with things that didn't quite fit the conventional explanations, with questions that most school curricula treated as already settled. That curiosity followed him across the ocean when he made the move to the United States. He enrolled at Ithaca College in New York, and in 1998 he graduated with a bachelor's degree in communications. That degree might sound like a quiet, practical choice, but looking back on it now, it feels almost perfectly chosen for the career that eventually found him. Someone who would spend decades making fringe theories accessible to mass audiences needed to understand how communication actually worked, how to hold attention, how to frame ideas so people would actually listen. He may not have known that at the time, but the foundation was being laid whether he realized it or not. What came next would surprise most people who only know him from television. Fresh out of college, Giorgio did not march directly into any archaeological dig site or documentary film set. Instead, he walked straight into the world of professional bodybuilding. From 1999 all the way to 2007, he worked as a promoter for competitions sanctioned by the International Federation of Bodybuilding and Fitness, which included some of the biggest events in the sport, among them the legendary Mr. Olympia. Between 2001 and 2005, he also served as the producer and director of the annual IFBB San Francisco Pro Grand Prix. This was not a hobby or a side gig. He spent nearly a decade doing this work seriously and professionally, building real skills in event management, promotion, and connecting with audiences. At the exact same time, something else was quietly running in the background. Starting in 1999 and continuing through 2008, Giorgio served as editor of a publication called Legendary Times magazine. The magazine focused on ancient astronaut research and was closely tied to the work of Erich von Däniken, the Swiss author whose 1968 book Chariots of the Gods had planted these extraterrestrial ideas into popular imagination decades earlier. Giorgio became deeply connected to that tradition of thinking, eventually rising to become the director of the Archaeology, Astronautics, and SETI Research Association, the organization built around von Däniken's broader body of work. So while the public face of his career involved coordinating muscle competitions in San Francisco, his private intellectual life was already fully immersed in ancient astronaut theory. Two completely different worlds, running side by side, quietly waiting for a reason to collide. That reason arrived in 2009, when the History Channel launched Ancient Aliens. The show was built around one central and deeply controversial question: what if extraterrestrial beings visited Earth in ancient times and played a direct role in the development of human civilization? From pyramids in Egypt to the Nazca lines etched across the Peruvian desert to the ruins of Pumapunku in Bolivia, the show argued that structures and achievements from the ancient world were either built with alien assistance or served as evidence of contact between early humans and visitors from elsewhere in the cosmos. Giorgio became one of the show's most prominent and consistent voices, appearing season after season with the same energy and the same conviction. He did not present these ideas timidly. Every theory came delivered with full theatrical commitment, as though the proof were already obvious and the only question was whether audiences were ready to accept it. His role grew over time. By 2016, he had moved from being simply an on-screen personality to becoming a co-executive producer of the franchise. That shift gave him real creative influence over the direction of the show, over which topics received attention, which ancient sites got explored, and which questions the series chose to raise. The bodybuilding promoter who had once organized stage events for professional athletes was now shaping one of cable television's most unusual long-running documentary programs. Outside the main show, he also stepped out to host a spin-off called In Search of Aliens, which aired for one season on H2 in 2014. The show sent him exploring topics ranging from Atlantis to other enduring mysteries, but its reception was uneven and it did not return for a second season. That setback barely registered as a pause in his overall momentum. The flagship Ancient Aliens series kept growing its audience, kept producing new seasons, and kept Giorgio front and center as its most recognizable face. Now, somewhere around November 2010, something happened that had nothing to do with television ratings or production schedules. A single screenshot from an episode of Ancient Aliens began circulating on message boards online, eventually making its way to 4chan before spreading across basically every corner of the early internet. The image caught Giorgio mid-gesture, his hair elevated to an almost architectural height, his hands lifted as though delivering a revelation that could not wait another second. Someone paired it with the caption, "I'm not saying it was aliens, but..." And the meme was born. What made it work so well was not cruelty, at least not primarily. It was recognition. Even people who had never sat down to watch Ancient Aliens immediately understood what the image was communicating, the tone of someone presenting a wild idea with complete, unshakable confidence. That combination of theatrical certainty and outrageous subject matter turned out to be infinitely adaptable. People started applying the format to everyday absurdities, to unsolved minor mysteries, to anything that seemed slightly unexplainable in ordinary life. The image stayed funny across completely unrelated context because the underlying joke was about confidence itself, not specifically about aliens or archaeology. When Giorgio became aware of the meme spread, his response genuinely surprised a lot of people. During a Reddit Ask Me Anything session in 2015, he stated openly that he loved the meme and considered it a genuine honor to have been embraced so widely by internet users. That answer was unexpected, coming from someone who could reasonably have felt mocked or diminished by the attention. Instead, he leaned into it completely. He treated the meme not as an embarrassment, but as an invitation, a way to reach people who would never have found him through the History Channel on their own. By accepting it without defensiveness, he converted potential ridicule into something much more durable, affection. That willingness to participate in his own internet mythology opened real professional doors. In 2021, he appeared as himself in an episode of the SYFY comedy series Resident Alien, playing a fictionalized version of Giorgio hosting a panel on ancient astronaut theory at a fan convention. The show's main character referred to him on screen as that high-haired gentleman, a direct wink at the meme that had been following him for over a decade. The cameo worked well enough that he returned the following year for a second appearance. Very few people manage to navigate that kind of crossover gracefully, where mockery and genuine appreciation exist simultaneously and neither cancels the other out. Giorgio found a way to occupy that strange space and stay there. The meme has proven stubbornly resilient over time. Between June 2024 and May 2025, data showed the Ancient Aliens meme template was still generating more than 2,000 monthly searches specifically related to meme generation tools. For context, most internet memes peak and collapse within a matter of weeks. A meme built around a single screenshot from 2010, still pulling thousands of monthly searches more than 14 years later, represents something genuinely unusual in terms of cultural staying power. At the same time that the meme was making him a global inside joke, serious criticism from the academic world was building steadily in the opposite direction. Archaeologists, historians, and anthropologists have spent years taking issue with the claims made on Ancient Aliens, with many describing the show's approach to evidence as deeply problematic. One of the recurring criticisms centers on what some scholars describe as a kind of intellectual underestimation of ancient peoples. The argument that structures like the Egyptian pyramids, the temples of the Maya, or the stonework at Pumapunku could not have been built without extraterrestrial assistance implies, however unintentionally, that the humans who built them lacked the ingenuity to figure out solutions on their own. Archaeologists and engineers have spent considerable effort documenting the practical methods through which ancient civilizations accomplished these feats, and critics argue that the show routinely ignores or dismisses that research. A deeper concern has also been raised about which civilizations tend to receive the alien explanation and which ones do not. Critics have pointed out a consistent pattern where ancient achievements of non-European cultures, particularly those of ancient Egypt, Mesoamerica, and South America, are more frequently attributed to outside intervention, while comparable achievements from European antiquity are less often framed the same way. Organizations focused on media accountability have raised concerns that this pattern, even if unintentional, carries troubling implications about how different cultures are perceived and valued. Giorgio himself has never held academic credentials in archaeology or anthropology. His formal education was in communications, and he has never claimed otherwise. Critics argue that the show's production values and confident presentation style can create a misleading impression of scholarly authority for viewers who are not already familiar with how academic standards in these fields actually work. The recurring phrase used throughout the series, "ancient astronaut theorists say yes," has been specifically criticized for presenting speculation as if it represents the settled conclusion of a recognized expert community rather than a contested fringe hypothesis. None of this has noticeably changed Giorgio's public approach. Across interviews, podcasts, convention appearances, and media events stretching across more than a decade, he has continued making the same arguments with the same conviction. He consistently frames the scientific establishment not as a corrective force, but as an institution that dismisses unconventional possibilities too quickly. Whether that framing reflects sincere belief, effective television persona, or some genuine mixture of both, the result has been the same. The criticism has followed him everywhere and slowed him down nowhere. As of 2026, Giorgio Tsoukalos remains actively working and publicly visible on multiple fronts. Ancient Aliens has continued well past what most observers predicted when it first aired, reaching well over 280 episodes across more than 20 seasons. The show holds a place among the longest-running documentary-style series in cable television history, regardless of how one evaluates its content. The production team has continued filming new material globally, with Giorgio remaining the franchise's central on-screen figure throughout. In addition to his continued presence as a host and on-screen personality, his role as co-executive producer means he continues to shape the direction of future seasons rather than simply appearing in front of the camera. Beyond the television work, he has built a presence across platforms that barely existed when his career began. His appearances on shows like The Joe Rogan Experience and Coast to Coast AM have introduced him to audiences that may never have encountered him through traditional broadcast television. He participates in fan conventions including dedicated events organized around Ancient Aliens specifically, and an Ancient Aliens live touring experience has brought him in front of audiences at venues across the United States. That cross-platform reach matters in an era when streaming habits and podcast audiences often reach more people than traditional cable schedules. On the personal side, Giorgio has been married to Crix Biebel, a glass and metal artist who creates handcrafted jewelry and crystal works. She has maintained a lower public profile than her husband, focusing on her creative work rather than her proximity to television fame. The two have generally kept the details of their relationship private, with neither becoming a tabloid fixture. Giorgio has been known to wear pieces of his wife's jewelry during public appearances, and she has accompanied him to events connected to the Ancient Aliens franchise. By most accounts, it appears to be a genuinely supportive partnership between two people with distinct creative lives. His estimated net worth, frequently cited around the $4 million range, reflects steady income built across nearly 2 decades of television work, public appearances, speaking engagements, and related ventures, rather than any single windfall moment. That number places him solidly within the landscape of successful niche television personalities, comfortable and established without approaching the wealth of mainstream entertainment celebrities. What Giorgio Tsoukalos represents as a cultural figure is genuinely difficult to categorize neatly. He is simultaneously a television producer with real creative influence over a long-running series, an internet meme that has outlasted countless others, a lightning rod for serious academic criticism, and a man who has spent over 2 decades pursuing something he appears to genuinely believe in. The bodybuilding promoter from Liusan who spent his nights editing a fringe magazine and his days running stage events for athletes found a way to turn that unusual combination into a career that now spans multiple decades and multiple platforms. The meme made him famous beyond the show's natural audience. The show gave the meme a foundation to stand on. The criticism made him a recurring subject of serious media conversation. And his willingness to embrace all of it, the admiration and the mockery both, kept him relevant in ways that neither pure television success nor pure internet fame would have managed alone. He is still out there right